For reasons unknown, the world has been divided into two kingdoms. The kingdom of light exists in the heavens, and it is a place of pure light and virtue. Meanwhile, the kingdom of darkness has corrupted the world below, and the king of darkness has been spreading ruin and chaos throughout the land. The kingdom of light is guided by a powerful rune, and Queen Iris, the supreme leader, is tasked with the immense responsibility of fighting off the darkness. However, the people of the kingdom of darkness have also been suffering due to the monsters forged by the darkness. Every day the elders of the village have to head out to hunt for food and resources. A steadfast and stoic boy also accompanies them. Despite looking like he's still going through puberty, the boy is respected by the people of the village. The hunting party is just about to head out when news breaks out of incoming monsters. The monsters of the King of Darkness pose a great threat for the villagers. They immediately instruct the nameless boy to gather the children and hide them in a nearby cave. The situation is intense, but the villagers are not afraid. They expect to deal with the monsters in no time. The nameless boy does not spare a second either. He quickly gathers the children, and they run towards the hiding spot. Unfortunately, things take a grim turn when a small boy falters and falls to the ground. His inability to run in a straight line causes a ferocious monster to catch up with the group. The nameless boy has to pull out his sword and fend off the beast while keeping the children safe. However, his dull sword is no match for the tough scales of the weird-looking creature. The children and their subpar hero have no choice but to run away. However, the monster is relentless, and it manages to grab onto one of the children. The nameless boy stares in horror as the little child is caught between the vicious fangs of the beast. There is nothing that can be done, and in his final moments, the child tells the nameless boy to save his sister instead. The situation is now completely dire, and in a moment of grief and cowardice, the nameless boy retreats. He hopes to save at least one of the children in his care. However, as soon as the duo reach the cave, the little girl gives up as well, and she falls silent forever. The nameless boy grapples with this sadness on his own. He takes the girl's lifeless body back to the village, but the entire place has been destroyed. There is not a single survivor amongst the ruins. As the tragedy settles down and rain falls over the desolate land, a lonely knight called Skiers finds himself on the outskirts of the village. He has no idea of the events that have transpired, and he foolishly thinks that the village is going to be a great resting spot. Reality soon becomes apparent when Skiers comes across the nameless boy manically digging a hole in the ground. Skiers questions the state of the village, and the nameless boy tells him about the monster attack. The entire time the boy never stops digging his hole. Skiers then becomes curious about the boy's obsessive behavior. He can see that the boy is growing exhausted, but he refuses to stop. The nameless boy wants to dig a grave for the people of the village. However, his strength is failing him. As soon as Skiers offers some food and water, the boy quickly abandons his resolve and devours the food. This simple action makes the boy more comfortable around the night. The nameless boy is curious about the actions of the King of Darkness. He wonders why the ruler of the kingdom allows monsters to run free and kill his own people. Skiers does not have a definitive answer for this question, but it is clear that he has some history with the King of Darkness. The nameless boy then tells the knight about a bright light that sometimes pierces through the sky, but this light is not meant for the people down below. The nameless boy is incredibly jaded, and this is unacceptable to Skiers. The knight throws the strange boy a sword and forces him to fight. At first, the boy does not hesitate. He thinks that Skiers is teaching him how to fight in order to defend people. However, Skiers has other ideas in mind. He is willing to kill the boy. This is not merely practice. Rather, Skiers is testing the boy's resolve. As a knight, Skiers is aware of the true nature of the world. He believes that there is a way for the people of the Black Kingdom to enjoy the light as well. These words go against everything the nameless boy believes in. He refuses to listen to Skiers and almost hits him with the sword. However, the attack easily gets parried by Skiers. The knight admits that he was supposed to replace the King of Darkness. However, the position was not in his destiny. Skiers becomes even more intense, and he pushes the strange boy back with his sword. It does not take much effort for Skiers to block the nameless boy's attacks. But despite the vast difference in power, the boy remains resilient. Skiers forces the boy to question his own ideals. The knight believes that having a miserable attitude will not help anyone in such dire times. Someone needs to rise up and actively reclaim the Kingdom of Darkness, instead of just waiting for help from the kingdom in heaven. Hearing these words greatly irritates the boy, which is precisely what Skiers wants. The knight uses his sword to deliver a sharp cut on the boy's cheek. It's just a warning strike, but at this moment, the boy confirms his own resolve. He declares that he will replace the King of Darkness and usher a new start for the people of this ruined kingdom. After declaring his intent, the boy charges forward and continues to engage in combat with the knight. Surprisingly, the nameless boy is quick on his feet, and he is able to keep up with Skiers. In just a matter of seconds, the boy manages to disengage the knight's weapon, and he sends the weapon flying across the field. Instead of getting angry, Skiers starts laughing. He reveals that he once fought the King of Darkness for the position, but he failed. Now the knight is old, and he can no longer continue his journey. The boy watches on as Skiers falls to the ground. The old man really is dying. In his final moments, he tells the boy to take his sword and head to the capital. The knight has a mansion where the boy can use the sword as evidence of his strength and trustworthiness. Skiers wants the boy to seek out a man named Valus and to declare himself as the Prince of Darkness, the true successor to the King of Darkness. The nameless boy does not take Skiers' words seriously. But the knight believes that the strange boy that he met in the middle of nowhere is an important key towards uniting the two kingdoms. This is Skiers' final wish, and he really wants the Prince of Darkness to take this task seriously. Just then, a bright light emerges from the nameless boy. This radiant glow should be impossible for someone from the Kingdom of Darkness. However, this is proof that the boy is destined to achieve greatness. While the Prince of Darkness is slowly taking steps towards his future, the Kingdom of Light is witnessing a ferocious fight between the forces of darkness and Queen Iris. Even though Iris has more than enough strength to swiftly defeat the monsters, she cannot keep up with the relentless attacks. Thankfully, the soldiers of light are by her side as well. Fuse, the commander of the knights, leads his men towards victory as they fight off the monsters. Meanwhile, Shima, the commander of the mages, provides additional support and strength to the troops. Queen Iris watches on as her faithful servants fight with pure strength and honor. However, she knows that the balance between dark and light will not hold on for much long, and things might become dire in the near future. For now, the soldiers of Light and Iris manage to win the fight against the darkness. Fuse and Shima also finally get a chance to catch a break and discuss the current situation. Shima is worried about Iris. Despite having the protection and power of the progenitor rune, Shima wonders if Iris is being troubled by the balance between light and dark. As the queen, Iris is solely focused on vanquishing the Prince of Darkness. But this task might be too difficult for her. Pius does not hold the same belief, and he warns Shima to be careful with her words. However, Iris really is worried about the war ahead. While speaking to the royal mage, she expresses her worry about the King of Darkness and his ever-growing powers. Iris has doubts whether her own strength can stand against such a formidable foe. She even orders the mage to push for more military training and preparation. While the Kingdom of Light prepares for war, the nameless boy has arrived at the capital as well. He walks around with the sword given to him by Skiers. But a mysterious man notices the weapon and forces the boy to explain himself. Despite telling the truth about how he acquired the sword, the man accuses the strange boy of stealing the weapon. The man demands that the boy return the weapon, and he doesn't hesitate to attack first. The boy realizes that this guy must be Valus. He gives further explanation before Valus ends up killing the Prince of Darkness and future king of the kingdom. As soon as Valus hears the boy's resolve, he realizes his mistake and puts his sword away. Hearing the boy calling himself the Prince of Darkness is enough for Valus to place his trust in the stranger. The Black Knight calms himself down and leads the boy towards the mansion. Meanwhile, in the Kingdom of Light, Shima finds Queen Iris praying to the progenitor rune. The two are actually good friends and even fought for the same position, but Iris ended up becoming the queen. Shima wonders if the entire world is only after the rune, but Iris has different feelings. She believes that the people of the Kingdom of Darkness are being led astray by their leader, and that a new King of Darkness could restore the balance between light and dark. But Iris has to place her trust in the new king. While discussing the future, Iris and Shima receive news of a serious attack being led by a villain named Baal. Iris immediately springs into action and orders her troops to prepare for a hard battle. Iris and the soldiers of light quickly move towards the western side of the kingdom where Baal has appeared. This formidable foe has already caused a lot of destruction in the area. As soon as Baal takes note of the mages trying to bring him down, he ruthlessly kills all of them in one swift move. Meanwhile, the soldiers on the ground try to penetrate Baal's armor with their weak arrows, but of course the attack does absolutely nothing. Baal almost destroys the soldiers as well, but he gets stopped by a sudden elemental attack. Lord Alantia, an elf from the region, has arrived on the scene as well. He uses his elemental powers to engage with Baal head-on. While the fight rages on, Fuse and Shima get into position as well. Lord Alantia needs all the help that he can get. He failed to entrap Baal, and now he stares in horror as the enemy continues to destroy the land. Alantia is quickly losing hope. However, Iris has arrived on the scene, and she is disheartened to see her fallen mages. This act of violence fuels Iris's determination to fight Baal head-on. She flies up into the air and strikes down Baal with the full force of her sword. Back on the ground, Fuse comes across a couple of deserters from the Army of Darkness. These men are clearly not cut out to fight in a battle. They are only peasants who were conscripted for war. However, Fuse is horrified to see the men transform into monsters and reveal their true colors. Instead of getting scared, Fuse springs into action and immediately leads his men into battle. Iris is also using the full extent of her powers to bring down Baal. She uses the power of the rune to launch a powerful attack. Baal doesn't even receive a scratch. He casually blocks the entire force, causing Iris to be pushed away. The queen is now truly worried about her own strength and whether she has enough resolve to fight Baal. Despite his intimidation tactics, Iris still charges forward with the help of the rune. Her sword is swift and sharp, but none of the attacks do any real damage to Baal. Iris has no choice but to call upon even greater power from the rune, but Alantia stops her. If she uses too much energy, then the rune will be exhausted. Iris has no option but to rely on her own strength. Thankfully, when Baal sees how pathetic his opponents are, he quickly retreats. Baal has no interest in fighting weak enemies, which is a great insult to the Queen of Light. The battle finally comes to an end, and it is clear that the Kingdom of Light suffered greatly. While Iris helps heal the injured, she receives word of the monster attack on Fuse and his men. The situation is looking dire and Iris is losing her once unwavering resolve. Meanwhile, things are brewing in the Kingdom of Black as well. Valis arrives at the royal palace, but he is quickly hounded by a monster. This lowly creature is complaining about all the fruitless battles taking place in the Kingdom of Light, and he demands to speak with the king. Things only escalate when the King of Darkness himself arrives on the scene and quickly subdues the rowdy monster. Valis silently watches as the king devours the creature as it struggles in the darkness. The King of Darkness does not care much about losing troops. He is hell-bent on letting the darkness devour everything. The king wishes to see a future where the darkness has blotted out the sky and reduced everything to oblivion. Valis meekly agrees with everything the King of Darkness is saying. The king wants to make use of Baal's strength to bring about the end of the world. He is also looking forward to his successor taking over the mantle and continuing this path of destruction. The nameless boy hasn't even met the King of Darkness yet, but there are already immense expectations placed on his shoulders. When Valis arrives at Skir's mansion, the Prince of Darkness is already waiting for him. The boy asks about Valis' visit to the royal palace. He is eager to get started on his destiny, and he demands Valis to teach him how to fight. However, as a successor, the boy has to start from the beginning. Valis places a huge pile of books on the boy's desk. As a successor, the prince needs to know how to govern a kingdom. He also needs to fix his manner of speech. All of this unnecessary training is annoying to the nameless boy. However, as a prince, he must go through his formal studies. Valis even promises to teach the boy sword fighting the following day. This is a point of no return for the new prince. He must learn to adapt to his new routine in order to become a competent king. Over the next couple of days, Valis and the prince train and study together. The boy even helps out a couple of people as part of his training. After some time, there is a clear sign of progress in the boy's strength. However, this is not enough for the future King of Darkness. The boy wants to grow stronger. When Valis sees how determined the new prince is, he offers the young man some of Skir's old armor. This is a sign of Valis' trust and belief that one day the boy is going to become a great king. While the successor of the King of Darkness continues his training arc, the army of the Kingdom of Black and their leader, Lady Groza, have been tasked with finding the successor. Lady Groza is definitely quite haughty in her attitude. She refuses to aimlessly walk around and forces her troops to stop for a break. Lady Groza continues to complain about her work, but the group suddenly gets attacked by lowly monsters. This is precisely the type of action Lady Groza has been waiting for. She springs into action and shows the monsters a thing or two about true power. Her troops stare in awe as their leader defeats the monsters in a matter of seconds. Lady Groza continues to revel in the praise that she is receiving from her troops. However, in the midst of her boasting, she receives a reality check and a monster attacks her from behind. Groza has no time to react, but thankfully, her savior has arrived. The Prince of Darkness quickly slays the monster and saves Groza. For the first time, Lady Groza is speechless. She starts blushing when the nameless boy worries about her safety. As the prince is about to leave, Lady Groza stops him to learn more about her mysterious savior. Groza is stricken with disbelief when she realizes that her savior was none other than the successor himself. She quickly stops the boy and takes him to a tavern. Groza wants the nameless boy to become the #1 candidate for the succession. If he fulfills this task, then the boy will also be rewarded with a powerful great sword. While Groza and the boy have this conversation, a strange man is listening in on them, and he has taken an interest in the great sword as well. As things escalate on both sides, Queen Iris is having a hard time forgetting her fallen soldiers. She is clearly lost in thought, and even Shima is surprised to see Iris so detached from reality. Iris quickly composes herself as Shima informs her of the reconstruction of the western part of the kingdom. The entire debacle reminds Iris of her days as a young girl. She used to pray a lot and Shima would always tease her. The two girls were chosen as the successors to the Queen of Light, but only one would receive the honor. Iris and Shima held the previous Queen of Light in great reverence. They were eager to one day shoulder the same responsibilities, but Shima had her reservations as well. She was scared of being cooped up in the palace for the rest of her life. Despite the paramount challenges ahead, Iris and Shima also spent their days as normal girls. Shima reminds Iris of the dinner party at her house. She also mentions how Fuse has been looking forward to the dinner as well. In preparation for this gathering, Iris decides to head into the forest and pick out some wild herbs and greens for her friends. Later on, Iris enjoys a wonderful meal with Shima, Fuse, and their brother Theo. The group is definitely a lively one and Iris is having a great time. Fuse then offers to walk Iris back home, and it is clear that the boy has feelings for Iris. He continues praising her the entire time, but Iris remains oblivious. As the walk comes to an end, Iris asks Fuse about what it means to become the Queen of Light. However, this is not a question that someone like Fuse can easily answer. The interaction motivates Iris to reflect on the question on her own. The following day, she stands on the edge of the cliff still thinking about the Queen of Light. However, the tranquil moment gets interrupted by the forces of darkness attacking the kingdom. Iris has no choice but to fend off the monsters on her own. She calls upon the powers of the rune to dispel the darkness. Iris ends up becoming surprised by her own victory. Iris then hears a mysterious voice that informs her about the loneliness of becoming the Queen of Light. Despite hearing this, Iris becomes inspired to confront the isolation and keep a balance between light and dark. This is the role that Iris was meant to maintain. She discovered this secret as a child, and now as the Queen of Light, Iris is more than ready to stand firm. Meanwhile, within the Kingdom of Black, Valis has done everything to prepare the nameless boy for the challenges ahead. Now the prince must take part in the succession ceremony and come out as a primary candidate. Lady Groza is in charge of the competition. She speaks to the small group of individuals who have gathered to take part in the tournament. The challenge is simple. First, the potential successors must defeat a group of monsters. The two remaining candidates will then engage in a duel that will decide the victor. The winner will receive the Great Sword of Black. Acquiring this weapon is a sure sign that the chosen candidate will become the King of Darkness. The candidates prepare themselves as the monsters are let loose in the arena. Everyone is incredibly self-centered and overconfident. Only the nameless boy remains calm and swiftly defeats the monsters. Some of the candidates quickly start to struggle, but instead of watching others die, the nameless boy steps in and saves a girl. This angers the other participants, but now is no time for an argument. A huge cyclops enters the arena and quickly takes down half of the candidates. Panic spreads as the candidates dwindle in numbers. Even the loudest successors are unable to defeat the powerful cyclops. However, the nameless boy remains vigilant and he manages to pierce the cyclops' head. The great monster falls to the ground, much to the dismay of the other candidates. Now the only ones left are the nameless prince and the arrogant boy called Adele. Before the fight can continue, Adele injures another participant who was trying to sneakily attack the nameless boy. This action does not leave a good impression on the prince. Later on, Lady Groza overhears Adele and the mysterious boy arguing about what it means to be the King of Darkness. Adele does not think that a king would save someone else, which is why he finds the boy's actions in the arena very unfit for a king. Tension is high between the two candidates and even Lady Groza is left feeling conflicted. The time for the duel finally arrives and everyone waits with bated breath. As soon as Lady Groza commences the duel, Adele charges forward. Compared to the nameless boy, Adele is fired up. He violently swings around his sword, but his opponent remains calm. The nameless boy remains focused because he knows that Adele has no chance of winning. In the middle of the heated battle, the prince manages to disengage the sword from Adele's hands. The boy has the perfect opening to kill Adele, but he refuses to take a life. This only further aggravates Adele. He grabs onto his weapon and charges forward once more, but the nameless boy stops Adele in his tracks. It is clear that Adele does not stand a chance. He admits defeat and Lady Grossa declares the nameless boy as the prime successor to the throne. The prince is then awarded the Great Sword of Black as well. The boy takes the weapon with great determination. After the event ends, the new prince, Lady Grossa, and Adele meet up with Valis. The Dark Knight informs the new successor that he must deliver a special message to the Kingdom of White. This is the moment the nameless boy has been waiting for. He finally has a chance to show the heavens how the future King of Darkness is going to conduct himself. Now that the wheels of destiny are in motion, the nameless boy and his small entourage fly towards the Kingdom of White. They have embarked on a magical ship that can fly in the air. In a short amount of time, the boy finds himself confronting the glorious kingdom he has been dreaming of. Lady Grossa tells the new prince to be careful since the two kingdoms are still at war. Adele also does not think that the boy is up for the task, especially if things go south. So, he offers to act like the leader of the envoy while the nameless boy can pretend to be his bodyguard. As soon as the envoy from the Black Kingdom arrives, Fuse and his men are immediately hostile. Adele keeps his calm and tells the prince to follow his lead. Fuse is then given the letter from the King of Darkness, but he is not satisfied. The soldiers of light are wary of anyone from the kingdom down below. They are racist towards anyone who follows the King of Darkness. Adele tries to de-escalate the situation by criticizing the King of Darkness in front of Fuse. He even acknowledges that the king has gone mad and the people are paying for his crimes. Fuse is still pleased with this response. He has been duped by the forces of darkness before, and he does not intend on being a victim again. Adele does manage to lower Fuse's guard by mentioning that a new king is set to replace the old one. This news is surprising for the soldiers of light. Once Fuse realizes that Adele is quite reasonable, he puts away his sword and takes the letter to Queen Iris. Once the queen reads the letter, she agrees to meet the envoy. Fuse leads Adele and the nameless boy through the Kingdom of White. The citizens of this land are clearly prejudiced against anyone from down below. Adele can't help but remark on this disparity, but Fuse forces him to hold his tongue. The group finally arrives at the throne room and Iris makes her grand entrance. As soon as the Prince of Darkness sees the Queen of Light, he is struck by her beauty. However, Iris is not aware that she is in the presence of the new successor. She quickly gets down to business and discusses the current situation between the two kingdoms. The fighting between light and dark has been going on for too long. On top of that, the increasing appearance of monsters and Baal is also a pressing matter. Adele agrees and assures the queen that the Kingdom of Black is also being plagued by similar creatures. This issue could reunite the two kingdoms, but Iris is not sure about the intentions of the King of Darkness. Just then, the prince speaks out of turn and assures the queen that the new king will do things differently. This is another conflicting matter. The Kingdom of Light finds it strange that the king is willing to give up the throne. Adele then has to explain that the king may be contradictory in his actions, but his wish to pass on the throne is set. The entire situation seems like a big mess and Iris needs more time to give a proper answer. Back on the airship, the soldiers of darkness are just goofing around and causing a ruckus. Lady Grossa has to reprimand the group for being so nosy, and she also orders them to clean the entire ship. Grossa then receives word that Valis wishes to speak to her. She has been called back to the Kingdom of Darkness because of an impending attack by Baal. Meanwhile, Adele and the nameless boy will have to spend more time in the Kingdom of Light. Fuse does not give them a warm welcome. He even becomes defensive when the prince dares to ask about Queen Iris. Adele once again has to de-escalate the situation. Later on, Adele and the nameless boy discuss their conduct in the Kingdom of Light. The new prince feels bad because his actions are seen as uncouth by everyone around him. The boy also feels like the Queen of Light is different. Adele is convinced that Iris is only thinking of her own people. However, the prince feels like the Queen of Light is more considerate than that. The following morning, Iris has gathered the envoy in her throne room once more. Before making her final decision, she wishes to hear the opinion of a commoner. So, she decides to ask the nameless boy for his perspective on the matter. This turn of events is shocking for everyone in the room, but the prince knows exactly what to say. He reminds the queen that Baal is a threat to both the kingdoms and everyone only wants peace in the end. Hearing this opinion encourages Iris to form an alliance with the Kingdom of Black in order to defeat Baal once and for all. Now that Iris has made her ultimate decision, she heads out to defeat Baal once and for all with the help of the Kingdom of Black. When Shima arrives at the throne room, she is surprised to find only Fuse waiting. Apparently, while Iris takes care of Baal, the envoy is going to be held as hostages. In the absence of the queen, Shima and Fuse are worried that Adele and the nameless boy might become violent. However, despite their own biases, the envoy is pretty chill and not a threat at all. Meanwhile, the Kingdom of Black has been preparing for Baal's appearance. It doesn't take long for the powerful villain to show up. However, Valis and Lady Groza have prepared their troops to face this great evil. Valis leads the charge and orders Lady Groza to take control of the crossbows. An entire army of monsters has been gathered precisely for this moment. Valis himself faces Baal head-on. He uses a flaming sword to attack the ferocious beast. However, his attacks are entirely useless. Baal is completely unbothered by Valis' sorry excuse of an attack. He then casually strikes down an entire swarm of monster troops. This is clearly child play for Baal, and he is already looking forward to his next toy. Lady Groza launches her attack from the ground below, but the crossbows do no damage. Groza then makes use of her own magic to attack. However, that ends up being useless as well. Baal flies towards Lady Groza and she barely makes it out of his path of destruction. Baal is an unstoppable force at this point. Despite being surrounded by magic seals in the air, Baal manages to escape. Even the high-ranking monsters are no match for this beast. Baal continues to destroy everything in his path, but Lady Groza and Valis have more tricks up their sleeves. They use their own powers to hopefully slow down Baal. However, that is not the case at all. Baal makes a mockery of everything Valis and Lady Groza prepared for the battle. This comes as a great offense to Valis, and he tries to attack the beast once more. However, Baal uses his powers to paralyze Valis and Lady Groza. With his opponents unable to move, Baal prepares to destroy them right then and there, but the King of Darkness steps in. The king saves Valis and Groza, and then he surrounds Baal in complete darkness. The demonic Baal uses a laser beam to destroy the monsters being created by the king. Valis and Lady Groza watch in horror as the king is also overtaken by Baal. The King of Darkness is having a hard time keeping up with Baal. However, before things can become dire, the Queen of Light arrives as well. Iris uses the power of the rune to bound Baal. This unexpected alliance is not something that Baal was expecting. With the help of Iris, the King of Darkness can now imprison Baal in his impenetrable scorching prison. Even though Baal mocks the king for allying with the Queen of Light, his baseless mockery is of no use. Baal vows to return as he is slowly trapped within his fiery prison. The battle against Baal is finally over and Iris gets to meet the King of Darkness as well. However, they do not exchange any words. Back in the Kingdom of Light, Shima gets to meet Adele and the nameless boy. However, the conversation is interrupted when the new prince sees Iris falling from the sky. He runs off towards the queen and quickly grabs onto her before she falls to the ground. Iris tells the nameless boy that they succeeded in their plan. However, it is clear that the battle took a great toll on Iris. Fuse and Shima arrive as well, and they quickly tend to their queen. Later on, Shima uses her powers to investigate Iris's condition. She discovers that Iris used too much of the rune's power and destroyed her own body in the process. This is devastating news, but Adele and the prince are not aware of it. Adele continues to goof around with the nameless boy, but he stops when Fuse arrives. The Queen's Knight does not share the news of Iris's health, but he informs the envoy that Baal has been defeated. Now that the alliance is fulfilled, Adele and the prince can go back home. However, they want to meet the queen first. Meanwhile, back in the Kingdom of Black, Lady Groza runs into Valis. The Black Knight has another urgent task for her. He needs Lady Groza to deliver an important letter to the Kingdom of White. Lady Groza is a bit annoyed that she has to go back to the Kingdom of White, especially after fighting such a grueling battle. However, she is also happy to finally meet the new prince again after such a long time. The situation in the Kingdom of White is also looking better. Iris gets to meet Adele and the nameless boy once more. She is glad that Baal is no longer a threat. However, she feels remorseful about all the suffering caused to the people of the Kingdom of Black. Adele assures Iris that her words are more than enough for his people. He even promises to advise the king not to attack the Kingdom of Light anymore. This declaration is a pretty big one, and it fills the entire room with silence. Fuse warns Adele that he might get killed by the king. However, Adele only wants peace for both kingdoms. The conversation gets interrupted by Lady Groza's arrival. This is the first time Groza has been allowed to meet with the Queen of Light. She delivers the king's message, and everyone silently waits for what lies ahead. Iris reveals that the king wishes to extend this period of peace between the two kingdoms, while they rebuild all the damage caused by Baal. This is definitely not what anyone had in mind, and it seems almost uncharacteristic of the King of Darkness. However, Iris accepts this peace proposal, and the mood quickly lightens up. Now that the two kingdoms are not at war, Iris becomes a bit more informal as well. She offers to show the envoy around the Kingdom of Light. As the group walks around the gardens, they come across Theo, the younger brother of Shima and Fuse. At first, Theo is terrified of the people from the Kingdom of Black. However, when he sees how friendly they are, Theo becomes more relaxed. The little boy has been looking after some wounded creatures. He uses his powers to heal the animal and nurse it back to health. Fuse is surprised to see his younger brother becoming so proficient at magic. Especially if Theo ends up surpassing the knight himself, it would be extremely embarrassing for Fuse. Adele and the prince note how these types of creatures can be found in their kingdom as well. However, they are much more mischievous and cause trouble for everyone. The group indulge in frivolous conversation, but Lady Groza is growing incredibly jealous of Iris and the prince. She can tell that the two heroes from the opposing side are growing closer. In a fit of panic, Lady Groza suggests that the two sides should switch outfits for the fun of it. This sounds like a great idea to Iris and Shima. However, it's the boys who end up switching wardrobes. Adele wears Fuse complicated armor. Meanwhile, Fuse wears Adele's dark clothes from the Kingdom of Black. The girls find these new looks very amusing, but now it is their turn to embarrass themselves. Lady Groza leads Iris and Shima into another room, where they discuss how to switch outfits. Lady Groza secretly wants to embarrass Iris, and she offers to switch clothes with her. Since Groza is well endowed, there is no way that Iris is going to fit properly in her scanty clothing. Groza strips completely naked to make Iris feel comfortable. After some time, Iris reveals herself wearing Groza's outfit. As expected, the end result is not that good. However, Lady Groza encourages Iris to show her new outfit to everyone else as well. Of course, Iris shies away from revealing herself in such informal clothing. However, Shima and Lady Groza end up switching outfits instead. After a long time, the girls finally reveal their new looks. Everyone marvels at how good Shima and Groza look in each other's clothing. To make things more awkward, Adele asks the prince to pick his favorite girl. The nameless boy ends up complimenting them both, which only makes Groza blush even more. Later on, Fuse rages on as he loses against Groza in a game of chess. This is the first time that members of the two kingdoms have spent time like this together. Despite the sun slowly setting, Iris wants the festivities to continue. On top of that, the queen and the nameless boy are both starving. Shima offers to make a simple home-cooked meal for the envoy. This is the first time Adele and the others will get to taste cuisine from the Kingdom of Light. Shima prepares the dish diligently and then offers it to the honored guests. The meal really is quite simple. In fact, its simplicity it's almost puzzling to the envoy from the Kingdom of Black. All of them find the food to be very bland and boring. Thankfully, Groza has some seasonings from the kingdom down below, and she offers it to Iris and her entourage. As soon as the Queen of Light eats the seasoning, she can't help but note how salty it is. It looks like people from the Kingdom of Black like their food to be well seasoned. For Adele, this is the taste of home. Since the two kingdoms are on better terms now, Iris believes that they need to acknowledge their differences as well. In a surprising turn of events, the nameless prince mixes the seasoning with the soup that Shima prepared. This new dish offers a blend of flavors that combines the taste buds of both kingdoms. The rest of the group follows suit, and they all enjoy a delicious meal. Despite enjoying the food, Fuse still praises the wild greens that Iris uses in her cooking. However, the nameless boy has never eaten wild greens. The ones that are found in the Black Kingdom are all dull and lifeless. Iris then offers to take everyone to pick some wild greens, and the prince likes this idea as well. Later at night, Groza finds the prince brooding on his own. He has been thinking about the Queen of Light. Groza is a little upset to hear this, but she declares to always support the new prince, especially when he becomes king. The nameless boy is thankful for his newly forged friendships. The following day, Iris leads the entire group into the forest to pick wild greens. She leads them to the base of a large tree where the greens tend to grow. In order to make things more fun, Adele proposes to turn the outing into a game. He suggests that the group should pair up, and the team that gathers the most greens will be declared the winners. The prospect of this game is enticing for Fuse and Groza. The knight wishes to team up with Queen Iris. Meanwhile, Groza imagines herself spending time with the prince. However, before the game can begin, Iris gives everyone a lesson on how to pick wild greens. The queen definitely knows her stuff. She is an expert in picking out the right types of herbs. It becomes clear that Iris should be left out of the game. Anyone who pairs with her is bound to win, and it won't be fair for others. In the end, the nameless boy ends up pairing with Theo. Meanwhile, Fuse pairs with Grossa and Adele pairs with Shima. The game begins and the groups set off into the forest. Adele is having a fun time teasing Shima. The girl is incredibly stuck up and she tries to remain cold. However, she slowly opens up to Adele. Theo and the prince are also having fun looking for wild greens. They find a rare sort of herb and quickly call over Iris so that she can investigate as well. Iris then confirms that these greens are edible and it should be okay to harvest them. The queen then wonders if she can join the prince and Theo on their little hunt for wild greens. This commingling of the two parties makes Fuse and Grossa incredibly jealous. Fuse is almost ready to kill the nameless boy, but Grossa stops him. Despite his reservations, the knight is surprised to see that people from the Black Kingdom are so close to each other. Grossa then starts yapping about how great the new prince is and how willing she is to follow him. However, she has no idea that Fuse is not aware that the real prince is the nameless boy. The little game finally comes to an end and Iris goes over everything that the teams have gathered up. She is impressed by the amount of herbs Theo and the prince have managed to harvest. Even Adele and Shima have an impressive bounty. However, Fuse and Grossa mostly harvested inedible greens. In the end, Theo and the prince are declared the winners of the game. Now that the herbs have been gathered, Iris offers to cook them up. For the first time, the nameless boy is witnessing members of the opposing kingdom working together. He can't help but smile at this wonderful moment. The group then decides to gather branches and water to start cooking up the greens. The boys search the forest for usable wood, while the girls clean the herbs in a nearby lake. This tranquil moment is soon ruined when the prince realizes that Theo is missing. Fuse and Adele spread out to search for the missing boy. Meanwhile, the nameless boy runs into Iris. He immediately asks the queen if she has seen Theo. However, amidst the chaos, the prince ends up tripping, and he falls into the water along with Iris. The nameless boy finds himself in an awkward situation, especially now that Iris is completely drenched. However, the queen does not mind at all. In fact, she is glad to see the boy showing so much care for Theo. Fuse and Adele also end up finding Theo, and the situation turns out to be a nothing burger. Iris and the prince return back to the group, and everyone can tell that something is going on between the two of them. Grossa and Fuse immediately grow jealous, but they don't say a word. For the rest of the day, the odd group focuses on cooking the wild greens. Everyone gathers once more to enjoy a delicious meal. However, there is still a distinct lack of seasoning. Thankfully, Shima has some of the salt left over from the previous night, and it makes the vegetables taste much better. Fuse suggests that the two kingdoms should start a trade agreement for the seasonings. Iris also likes the idea, especially since a trade system would only make it easier for all of them to hang out with each other more often. The King of Darkness has sent word for the envoy to return back to the kingdom. This news is sudden, but the prince and the others had to eventually go back. Fuse and Adele have grown closer as well, and the knight no longer hesitates to return the weapons he took from the envoy. Now all the group needs to do is meet the Queen of Light one last time before departure. Adele and the prince arrive in the throne room where Iris is writing up a trade agreement. As soon as she sees the nameless boy, an unexpected bond lingers between the two. However, they let this feeling hover in the air. Iris gives Adele the trade agreement, and she hopes that the king will continue to support good relations between the two kingdoms. Iris hopes to see the envoy again, however. Adele changes his tune very quickly. All of a sudden, Adele starts speaking in a crazed frenzy. He starts blabbing about how people in the Kingdom of Light are happy and living prosperous lives, while the people of the Black Kingdom continue to live in the shadow of the world above. Adele's facade has been completely shattered. He declares that the people of the two kingdoms are not similar at all. All of a sudden, Adele unleashes his true form and turns into a demon. He charges towards Iris with his sword ready to attack the queen. Iris can only stare in horror as Adele threatens to take her life. However, the prince steps in and cleaves Adele in half right in front of everyone. Everyone in the throne room is left speechless at the bloody violence. The nameless boy killed Adele without even giving it much thought. Fuse quickly seizes the boy and starts beating him up for being so barbaric. The prince does not retaliate at all. He quietly takes the beating. Fuse then imprisons the prince and takes him away. even though Iris tries to stop her knight from hurting the boy she has been crushing on this entire time. Meanwhile, Lady Grossa is waiting for her companions to return, but the airship quickly leaves the Kingdom of Light. Grossa is hastily informed that one of the envoys was arrested and that she must return to the Kingdom of Black. The situation is not looking good for either side. Fuse starts beating himself up for being foolish enough to think that there could be friendship between the two kingdoms. He is clearly overreacting, and he completely misunderstood the situation. Shima and Theo even try to explain to Fuse that the nameless boy only protected Iris from getting hurt. However, the foolish knight believes that the fighting will never stop and that Iris will never be free from her responsibilities. Theo tries to make Fuse listen to reason. He does not understand why adults cannot control their emotions. However, Fuse has no intentions of calming down. His sole duty is to protect the queen, no matter what. Meanwhile, Iris prays to the rune for guidance. She has no idea why people of the sky and earth are destined to fight each other. All of a sudden, the rune starts to glow a brilliant color. Iris then hears a mysterious voice instructing her to focus on what truly needs to be protected. The nameless boy has also awoken in his cold prison cell. He has no idea what Adele was plotting, and whether killing the queen would have been beneficial for the Black Kingdom. However, all the prince knows is that he acted on an impulse to protect Iris. He wants to clear the misunderstanding and give Iris a proper explanation and apology. However, no words can truly explain whatever is going on with the Kingdom of Black. All of a sudden, a bright light illuminates the prison cell, and a cute, little white cat appears. The cat opens the cell door and beckons the injured prince to follow. The boy has no idea what's going on, but he chooses to follow the cat. There is not a single guard around, and it is clear that someone wants the nameless prince to escape. The prince continues to follow the cat throughout the Kingdom of Light, and finally they reach a familiar cliff. The cat then transforms into the rune and Iris bursts through the illusion. The prince quickly grabs onto the girl as she falls to the ground. Iris has realized that this strange boy is the Prince of Darkness and the next successor. She explains how she wishes to maintain a balance between light and dark. However, the path to peace is always restricted. The prince encourages Iris to continue her noble path of saving people. He even promises to support her from the kingdom down below. Once and for all, the prince promises to become the King of Darkness and to work with the Queen of Light to create the perfect balance. Both of them promise to wait for each other and strive for a world where the two kingdoms can coexist in peace. The prince flees from the Kingdom of Light before the knights can catch him, but he is determined to succeed the throne for the sake of Iris and their two kingdoms.